Thank you for taking the time to watch this episode of Life Support. If you enjoy the content, we would ask that you like it, hit subscribe, and share it with your friends. Hey, welcome to Life Support. I'm so glad you're here with us. What we do in this program is we love to talk about how God steps in, changes lives, and we tell stories about how Jesus loves you and cares about you and wants to help you. And we have those who want to help today, and we're so glad they're here. Paul and Lori Strong are the co-founders of Parenting with Purpose. I want to thank you both for being here. Glad to have you.
Thank you.
Glad to
We're
be
honored
here.
to be here.
So tell me a little bit about Parenting with Purpose. What's the mission of your organization?
Years ago, before I even met her, I was at a conference, and the Lord spoke to me, Malachi 4:6, turning the hearts of the fathers to their children and the hearts of the children to their father. At the time, I didn't know what it meant, and one of my mentors, pastor, he said, it's also in the New Testament. He said, I think you need to really meditate on that and dive into it. And he said something that very few people say, and you can't rush it. God will let you know when it's time. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until we met, we were friends, you can jump in anytime, that I was working with different organizations, working with kids and working with men who were perpetrators of abuse. And so I was working in St. Louis Park area, and we were friends, and she was working with women who was getting their rights back. And so I called her because I was working with some single moms, and I asked her, do you guys have any programming? And she's like, they got to be a part of the system. And I was like, that's weird. And so I was also working with the Wilder Foundation, working with kids. And one day we were taking some kids home, me and one of my colleagues who was working at Shakopee at the time. And we were walking the kids up, and there were some guys outside, doing stuff they shouldn't be doing, smoking some weed. So we had like 4 siblings. And I said, hey, I'm going to take the kids up and make sure somebody's home. So he said, I'll come with you. And Grandma had an infant in her hand. And so she was in the back, so I knocked on the door because it was open. And I said, hey, we're from the Wilder Foundation. We're bringing the kids back. And so I'm walking in the house as if, nothing was wrong. And we get in the car, in the van, and, he's sniffing. And I'm like, dude, what's wrong with you? He said, I forgot where I came from. I said, what do you mean? He said, I'm tipping-toe over the stuff that's on the floor, and you were walking in like the floor is immaculate. And I'm like, dude, I can care less. I just want to make sure the kids go home. And he started crying. And a week later, he had said to me, hey, I work at Shakopee. I'm a programming. And I think we want to get you to come over and do some programming. And I was like, what? And then go ahead, you can.
So that was just God's timing for us, because we had just talked about the gap of services that there were when he had asked me about where I was working, if we had programming, and we were very limited in who we would serve. And so it was like a light bulb went off, like this, there are gaps out there, and we need to find those gaps and fill those with God's word. And so we ended up going and interviewing at Shakopee Women's Prison, which is what he was referring to as Shakopee.
Right.
And at that time, there was only 160 women there. Now there's like 600. But at that time, they had no parenting programming for these ladies. And I was like, well, most of them are moms, and they're going to come out and not be equipped with better parenting skills than what they came in with.
Right.
And so we offered our services to them, and they said they'd give us a 6-week trial period, and then good rumors spread fast. And we were there for, many years, and actually we're still there. They're just under construction right now, so we're on temporary hold. Mm-hmm. But and then it spread into the men's prison. Word got out what we were doing at different events we were at, and so we ended up at Faribault Men's Prison, Rush City Men's Prison, Lino Lakes Men's Prison, and currently we're at Lino Lakes and Shakopee, and we're working as well at Minnesota Teen Challenge in their Leadership Institute, providing parenting to those participants. And it's been a great journey. The other side of what we do is we have a mentoring program for children and youth that are impacted by incarceration. and also just trauma-based things that are happening in their families. And so we've been doing this for 31 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and God is expanding it. We're not trying to expand it, but He is expanding it.
Yeah, He does that sometimes.
Yeah, he does.
What kind of gaps do you run into? What are the real issues that you find that are common denominators with the people that you work with as far as parenting goes?
I think I think it's a little different for men than women, so I'll let Paul address the men's piece.
For the men, it's fear of failing, or I don't know how to do it, or I don't want to do what was done to me, or they do nothing.
Right.
And it's so I'm just going to do what was done to me. And they've never been fathered. There's the old adage, men don't cry. And so 90% of the guys say, I don't know how to share my emotions. And that's considered weak.
Yeah.
And then they use the excuse, well, if I cry in here, they're going to try to take advantage of me. And I said, that's just the enemy playing tricks on you. I said, so you mean to tell me if your kid, while you talking on the phone and they say, Dad, I really miss you. I don't know if I can go another day without you. You mean to tell me you will not cry? I said, but I've heard guys tell me when they cut those lights off at 11 o'clock, they start crying at 12:30. They hug that pillow.
Yeah.
And so what's the difference?
Yeah.
What's the difference? And they want to change, but they don't know how to change. And the biggest thing is fear of failure.
So you're starting kind of from square one because many of them have absolutely no role modeling.
Right.
Or negative role models.
Yeah.
And it's not weird, because just about 2 years ago, I had a gentleman say to me, he said, what you're teaching us, the facilities should be apparent. And he's like, this is amazing. And when you say some even correction officers haven't been parented. So when they lash at you, they're lashing out at you because that little boy, little girl in them yearns for a father figure. And so when you don't have that, you act out. And he said, this is supposed to be rehabilitation. But if they take your model, we can change the culture here. And he said, so your motto is really, really, really clear. And my motto was to shut DOC down by breathing life into fathers, and now you can practice fathering other men. And what are they going to do when you're behaving right, when you're speaking life, when you're being compassionate, when you're doing what's right because it's right? How are they going to not change themselves?
Right.
And I was blessed to run into some officers who loved the Lord, and they was like, I couldn't wait for you to get here, and these guys can't wait till you get here, and to see God move. And I've had one guy was like, hey, you do know, when I come in here, you remind me of the Apostle Paul. I was like, what do you mean? He wrote 2/3 of the Bible in prison.
Oh, right. Yeah, there you go.
And when you come in here, you give me hope. And you don't come in here afraid. You don't come in here judging. You don't come in here condemning. You come in here loving us where we're at, and to make us realize that God still have a plan, and our failures do not disqualify us from God's goodness, His mercy, His grace. And it's just, I think, over these 31 years, I've gotten more out of it than maybe they did, because it makes you really understand that God has called every human being with a unique calling.
Yeah.
And when you don't get the right fathering, you can go off track and then seek affirmation from other people who may not have your best interests.
Yeah, and I want to ask you about women in a second, but it's interesting that you say that, because we quickly judge people, and we kind of have this, like, they're good people and bad people.
Right.
But we forget everybody's got a story.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're there they're there. Yes, there are choices. Of course, we have to have law and order, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
But those stories must be very complicated at times.
Mm-hmm.
And when you help them understand themselves too, I'm sure that brings hope to them as well.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I've had guys, I would say when a man steps into his rightful place, he's going to be attacked.
Mm-hmm.
Because the enemy knows if I can get the head, I can get the body.
Yep.
And so I would tell them the first day of class. And I said, look to your left, look to your right. You may not see that person a week from now, 2 weeks from now. You may not even see him the day before graduation. And it never fails. Guys was like, you're right. And I got tested. I said, but you overcame. So now you know what you're doing now is God ordained.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to walk you through these trials. And to hear them come back and say, me and my kids got a relationship now. I can feel my kid's mom heart softening, and she stands back and she listens to us have a conversation. We communicate now. And and she's like, I think I'm going to put more time on your card so you can call the kids because they really miss you. And I can see that they need you. And
you can see the growth right in front of you.
Wow.
Then.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
And so I would come home sometimes, and when our kids was there, they were like, "Dad, what you doing in your group?" I said it was amazing, and so it made me really hone in how I was parenting them.
Sure.
Because they started getting the benefits. So it wasn't that something I was reading, it was something that I was living out myself to see the fruit of it. So it was easy to go in now and share some of those same principles.
Yeah, because you're in the battle with them, right?
Yeah.
I often have that experience when I'm studying for sermons and so forth. It's like, oh, yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, that's me.
Right.
Yep, that's me.
That's right.
Oh, my goodness, this is all me.
Yeah, it's more for you
But
than
it's amazing
anything.
when you share it with people, then they give you permission then to speak to them because they know that you understand there's a battle there and you're in it too.
Right.
Yeah.
What about women? What are they struggling with, Lori?
I think you talk about a battle. There's a lot of battle in their mind about like confidence and who they are. But women are very relational. Not that men aren't, but they're primarily relational. And so I think that their relationships not only have led them to prison, but also keep them in bondage when they get out. Because especially with families, I've had to teach a lot of women how to love from a distance, even from your own family, that you have to build a network of support that's going to be there for you and not judge you and not keep holding on to what you did in the past. And women tend to hold on to that, and so that brings the shame and the guilt. And then it almost like stops them from being able to be the best mom they can be because they're so focused on what they did in the past.
I see. So they're living kind of in shame and regret?
They are. And a lot of times, and this is the part of the expansion that God has done in us is that women that are in prison, a lot of them are also in recovery from addiction. And so it's like a vicious cycle, the two things, prison and treatment, right? And so that keeps them in bondage as well. So when they get out, what are their plans to stay, free from addiction, right? But also free from those relationships that maybe have caused them to be in there. And I think that's the biggest barrier for women is their relationships.
So when you said relationships led them there, you meant relationships with the wrong people?
Yeah. Typically, it's, a lot of their crimes were because they wanted to please the man they were in a relationship with, right? Or it's against the man because it was a volatile relationship. And so to teach them how to have healthy relationships is probably the key to success for them.
Yeah. So you come with tools, but you also are believers, and you come
yeah.
with Christ.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so how do you integrate your faith with this?
Yeah, that's interesting that you would ask that. When we first started this, we sat down. I still remember that day. We sat down. We were making our first brochure, and then we handed it to a friend of Paul's to read, and he looked at it, and he said, I don't see God in this. And I said, oh, God is in it. The word God wasn't in it, and God has been very creative with us to be able to kind of go into places where a lot of people might not go if they're not a believer, right? But we want people to take our class that are non-believers and believers, right? So we come in at pretty uniquely. We come in and say we're teaching parenting, and a lot of the people want to learn how to be a better parent. But then when they come into our class, they end up getting the presence of God from us. We bring God in with us. We don't necessarily bring a Bible with us, so it's very unique, but we bring the Word with us because it's inside of us. And God has used that as a creative way to reach out to people and reach people who would not normally go to a Bible study,
right.
But they'll come and learn about being a better parent. And that is where God has been so creative with us, and it's been awesome. So we bring our faith with us where we go, and it just shines through. It also shines through primarily with what Jesus says is love people, right?
Yeah.
So we love people unconditionally. And they could go, I know I have one lady I'll never forget. She came in and out of prison many times. And I was there for her every time she called me. I would get frustrated sometimes, but I'd pray for her. And I would always be there for her, even when she messed up. And that's what Jesus is. And that's what he's called us to be.
Yeah.
And I believe that's how we do. That's why we've been around for 31 years.
Wow. And now, when people are open to what you're bringing to them, what elicits that desire to be better parents in them?
For very few men are transparent, vulnerable.
Yeah.
And if you never see that, you never become that. So you're always on guard. And you say, what's his angle? What's he trying to get? And I always tell them, I'm not trying to get something from you. I'm trying to get something to you. And they're like, whoa. And I said, I love y'all. Some of you don't believe it, but if you keep coming back, you're going to keep hearing me say I love you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to get you to see it from my perspective, because my kids have different personalities. Your kids have different personalities. But I'm going to give you some fundamental truths, foundational truth that work no matter what ethnicity you are.
Right, right.
Because at the end of the day, all of us yearn for a father's love. And my job is to show you how God the Father expresses his love through me, through my children. Because if I don't reflect him, my kids will walk out angry at God and thinking God is a heavy-handed, always out to get me, nothing I do. I said, that's not God. And so I just love them, and I said, as a man thinketh, so is he. And somebody's like, isn't that in the Bible? And I start laughing, and I would say something like, they asked me, so how'd you get in here? Now, he asked me, so don't go out here asking, saying I'm proselytizing or nothing, right? Because if you do, I know it comes from somebody in this group, so I have fun with them.
Right.
I laugh with them, and some guy was like, you're kind of funny. And I was like, what did I say?
Yeah.
And I think men, we are so stoic, we are so guarded, because we have a lot of trauma. And then I usually would end up with the saying with them, I say, today you're better than you were yesterday.
I have a lot of questions, and so next time we're gonna do another one with you guys, and we're gonna ask more questions. But right now, I've got to ask you, how do people support Parenting with Purpose?
There's several ways. One is we always need volunteers, and we have a website. It's parentingwithpurpose.org. It's pretty simple. Also, we have some events throughout the year, fundraisers, and go onto the website and check us out.
Okay. And you're doing some really great work, and I'm looking forward to finding out more.
Thank you.
Because most people are parents, and once you're a parent, you never stop.
Right, ever.
It doesn't matter how old your kids are.
We know.
In fact, they just get more expensive as they get older. That's kind of my theory. Thanks, you two, and thanks for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much.